that Secretary Clinton has for all Americans, no matter what jobs they're doing, who are fighting to do what's best for their family. And so I started applauding when you talked about what's the right way to transition. And so there's really two things we have to do. Number one, we have to understand that America must lead when it comes to new, clean, renewable energy innovation. And the way to do that is begin to do the right kind of incentives. And again, this sounds like technocratic, but it's the kind of thing that Secretary Clinton knows like the back of her hand. We've got to extend tax credits for renewables. I fought to do that in the Senate in this last big omnibus bill, but they are too short, 3-5 years. They have to go farther for wind, farther for solar, and farther for other innovations. We need to invest ourselves in the innovations of technology. This is why you see even now philanthropists like Bill Gates who are setting up funds to make sure that this country can stay on the forefront of that. We need to make sure that Hillary's vision is in place. She wants to make sure that we have 500 million new solar panel installations in her first term, 500 million, and she also believes that within 10 years of her presidency, we can have all the homes in our country have enough clean, renewable energy to power all of the homes in our country. But we also have to know that we have to prepare for a transition. And we have to make sure that whether you're a coal miner or an oil driller, I hope to see the day that we do not have a nation dependent upon those dirty fossil fuels that are causing problems. But we have to make sure that we have transition so that nobody gets left behind. And that's where the compassion of Clinton really gets me when she talks about this issue in a whole. And I just want to finish by saying, because you really were talking about a specific incident in which the interest of an industry were so cavalier and destructive that they were undermining a family that had been doing their way of business for a long time. The water question that was asked before about when they pump this slurry into the ground as a part, and you see these companies, wildcatting companies, who let that slurry into rivers and lakes that's despoiling our country. That's why right now the attacks on the EPA that we're seeing right now in Congress are outrageous. And what I want is a ferocious grandma in the White House who understands that the children like Chance, who was just held up here before, don't have situations like what's happening in Flint. What Secretary Clinton said to me, which is so true, is that Flint is not an anomaly. Please understand that. What I love about Secretary Clinton is this wasn't new to her. This wasn't the story of the moment. 500 million children every year in this country were being poisoned by lead. We have kids in West Virginia who are being poisoned by private industries who are reckless with what they're doing with their water. We have places in Pennsylvania with the same lead levels as Flint has now. And so if we don't start seeing this, the larger picture that it is, and begin to fight back to preserve our water systems, to preserve the sanctity of our soil and the gifts and the treasure that God has given us in our natural resources, then we're going to see generational damage done to our children. And the last example, I'll give you this. People don't even realize this. The number one reason why children miss school, the number two, okay, stop taking my lead from me. She's the answer already. The number one reason for childhood hospitalizations is, now you can say it, yell it out. Asthma. Is asthma. Now, why do we have such high asthma rates? Why do we have such a high asthma rate? And a lot of that, thank you very much, is air quality. And why do we have such poor air quality? Stop. Did Secretary Clinton send you out here, or did she send me? But you guys know it. So I just want you to know that to have somebody who is a fighter, who understands that no matter, if you look over here at clean energy, if you look over here at tax credits, you've got to be watching your back about the rolling back of the kind of enforcement that the EPA is doing. We need to fight this battle on all fronts to ensure that the future for all Americans, the children of coal miners and the children of solar panel installers, that all Americans, that the clean energy future is one where America is leading the globe and empowering our economy at the same time. Two more questions. Hey, listen, the Secret Service was ready to take me out of here. I'm joking. I am happy to stay. I hope we can do some selfies afterwards. I might ask to do a Snapchat before I go. But y'all,
we'll do a Snapchat.
We can do a Snapchat.
All right, before you go. Okay, so next up, we have Jennifer Isolé from Duck Valley, Shoshone.
afternoon. Thank you for joining us on behalf of Secretary Clinton. My name is Jennifer Isla. I'm from Shoshone-Paiute Tribe's Duck Valley Indian Reservation in northeastern Nevada. Our reservation is very isolated and surrounded by public lands and small ranches. Tribal members utilize resources on public lands for food, medicine, and ceremonial purpose. Over the past decade, tribal members in many states have been cited and prosecuted for violating roadless rules while exercising treaty rights and trust rights on public lands. The most notable case concluded last year in Washington State when a tribal member was convicted of to 6 months incarceration and a $34,000 fine. He drove his truck onto the Hanford Reach, which is a wildlife refuge. But that was his fine for violating off-road motorized vehicle restrictions in a monument. In the last year, several new monuments were established by executive order under the Antiquities Act in Nevada, Idaho, and Utah, and will likely lead to more roadless rules restrictions. My family is now unable to access sites in the Hawaii Desert that we have always used, and my ancestors have used since time immemorial. Gradual encroachment by extraction industries have led to mastication of pinyon forests. Each year, tribal members must travel further and further from home to gather traditional foods. Access to traditional resources is critical to our cultural survival. Public lands account for 55% of Nevada and over 50% of Oregon, Utah, Montana, and Idaho. Federal government's responsibilities are far-ranging regarding public land management. However, honoring treaty rights and trust rights should be a priority. If Secretary Clinton is elected, can you tell us how she will navigate the clash of interest over public land use and uphold trust responsibilities to Indian tribes?
So as a guy who's done a lot of circuiting for President Obama in 08 and 12, and now for Secretary Clinton, I always know when something is a nerve for them. So I must have gotten 6 memos from the Clinton team with one sentence sort of highlighted, bolded, and emphasized. And then I see it, judge people not just by what they say and write, but what they do. I've seen it because when I heard that the Clinton team had spanned out to drive themselves to tribal lands and speak to folks, I was pretty impressed. So what she had emphasized to me time and time again is, I will protect and defend the sovereignty of tribal nations, come what may. I will lead with that and fight for that. And so I am outraged. When you tell me about that arrest as a guy who thinks we have a broken criminal justice system, and I hear a guy who probably didn't even know that he drove onto those lands get such a harsh sentence, and I see the toleration we have for a bunch of other armed folks who take and occupy land, putting in danger tribal artifacts and other things. It's an outrage to me. I can imagine what would happen if 10 or 15 tribal members did the same thing. Or I can imagine what would happen if a bunch of Puerto Ricans took over a federal lobby in Newark, New Jersey, or something like that. And so that gets my back up about what we tolerate. And so I just want you to understand that the public trust, this idea that lands held in the public trust, it means that those lands are for public use and public good. And we need folks that are not going to let them be sold off for private interests that want to drill and log and undermine them. Remember, this campaign is about privatization of the public trust. It is, if people know the old article about the tragedy of the commons, it's an inviting of the tragedy of the commons to come in so that we despoil that land so it is not there. And this land, when it is historic land of the tribal communities, that to me is an affront on everything it should mean to be an American, which is respecting the sovereignty of tribal nations. So please understand that I can tell you right now, the fact that Secretary Clinton, if I said anything here and made sure that was a point of emphasis, that this is something that she will do ferociously, both with Supreme Court appointments in Congress, and as well as doing things that the federal government can be doing. And I know about the primacy of states, But the federal government can do so much more under her leadership to begin to protect, preserve, and defend both tribal lands and the public lands, and she will get that done. Thank you.
All right, last but not least, we have Dulce Valencia from PLAN.
Dulce, ¿hablas español?
Claro que sí.
Tú tienes un equipo grande aquí.
Gracias.
Sí, es impresionante.
Gracias.
Okay.
Hello, Senator.
¿Necesita más apoyo? Porque quiero... sí.
Well, hello, Senator.
Gracias. Pregúntame, amiga.
Okay. My name is Dulce Valencia, and I am a dreamer.
All right.
I came to the state of Nevada when I was 11 years old, and I have called this state home ever since for the past 8 years.
Okay.
I knew that I was undocumented from the moment I arrived, but I didn't really know what that meant. It wasn't until 8th grade that I began to feel the effects of being undocumented. I was being awarded a scholarship by my school, and when the principal called me into her office to congratulate me, she said that all I had to do to receive it was present her my social security number. I told her I didn't have one. She simply looked at me a bit stunned and said, "Of course you have one. Everyone has one." Hearing those words made me realize that being undocumented wasn't something normal, so I vowed to stay hidden and not mention my status to anyone. This was the mindset that I had as I entered high school and the one that remained with me. It wasn't until 2012 when President Obama announced DACA and I found out that I didn't qualify that I, in a sense, woke up. Not qualifying for DACA made me realize that I needed to be out there fighting for my future, just like I had seen the dreamers on TV do, instead of simply sitting on the sidelines. So I decided to take control of my life, and I began by volunteering at PLAN. And with PLAN, I was able to find my voice, and I was able to begin advocating for myself and for immigration reform. Today, I continue to advocate on behalf of immigration reform, but also for everyone out there who feels as voiceless as I once felt, and for everyone out there who's still in the shadows, afraid of having their families torn apart. Today, we acknowledge that immigrants helped build America, yet the questions surrounding immigration reform have divided candidates in 2016 more than ever before. Everyone agrees that the system is broken. Senator, what is Secretary Clinton's vision for fixing our broken immigration system?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please give her a lot of applause. And your voice is your power. Su voz es su poder. And it's, again, impresionante. So thank you for a very important question. And again, so, you know, in a time when there's lots of great Democrats out there, a lot of my friends ask me, well, why are you choosing Secretary Clinton? Especially because you said before, I lived in these high-rise, low-income housing, and then lived in high-rise public housing projects. The house I bought is just down the street from there. I live in a community with a lot of Blacks and Latinos and immigrants. And I just say that I trust people not by what they say, but by what they have done on these actions. And so I tell you right now, most recently, I was so happy that you already heard me. I got a little too excited and about the fact that she led with criminal justice reform. But when we came to Nevada, the first meeting she had was at a high school where she sat down with dreamers. The very first conversation she had was to talk to them about this very issue. And so there's something about her, and I think it's because she respects the tradition of this country. That we are built strong by people that were not necessarily born here, but by immigrants, that we have, as a nation, have a motto that's written on a statue that sits off the coast of New Jersey. And so she has a plan to get this done. So the first part of that plan is both DACA and the parents of Americans are really important to her. So she's going to defend that. She's going to defend President Obama's executive orders, which there's efforts to go and undermine. Another thing she feels very concerned with, which she says publicly, is even now she believes the immigration policies of the United States is causing havoc, is tearing apart families, that we're deporting in a way that is too indiscriminate and in many ways undermining what our values are. And then finally, as somebody who was in the Senate fighting for